Well, welcome to another edition of Limbs to Lemonade, where we celebrate people who not only have survived through lemons, but have thrived. And so today I'm so excited about my guest. He is a speaker, an author, an elite athlete with 3 world records. It's unbelievable. And he's also my dear friend. Please welcome Brad Barton. Thanks, Brad, for being on the show with me.
What a pleasure.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
We met probably 5 years ago, and when you came and spoke at Unite Utah,
Yeah.
and I've just been so impressed with you ever since then. And so, today I know you've had a few lemons in your life, and we're going to cover all because you got some great stories. But we're going to cover A today, and maybe some other time we'll go over the B too, right? The show B with you. So, but let's just dig right into it. Give some background.
Well, if we're going to talk about athletic lemons, I've actually been very blessed. I thought I was a track star in high school. Turned out I was recruited to a Division I school. There's only one coach that was interested in me because he had a vision and maybe could see what other coaches didn't, which is kind of part of Chick Hislop's MO. But ended up realizing I was a very small fish in this great big huge pond, and struggled really badly my freshman year academically, athletically. Served a religious commitment for a couple of years and came back. I was 25 pounds heavier, and in a good way, with 2.5 pounds of inches taller, and just a lot more mature in many ways, spiritually and academically. Came back and thrived at Weber State, and he um, it pulled me aside after just a few months of working with me again, and said, I think we can go make the Olympic team. No Weber State University athlete, track and field athlete, has ever done that. Let's go do something that's never been done. And from then I was hooked, and I really bought into his philosophy. And he got me to the point where I arrived at the Olympic trials, one of the favorites to make the 1992 Barcelona Olympic team. I was ranked 19th in the world that year. And then the last lap of the last workout before I stepped on that plane to go to the Olympic trials, I slipped over the water barrier and I broke my wrist, Michael, and I separated my shoulder, deep gash in my shin. It was pretty pitiful, actually, the state that I was in. But I do remember being in great pain, but I don't remember um, ever having any doubts that I was still going to make that Olympic team. I wouldn't let them put a cast on it. We just put a brace on my broken wrist. And I went to the Olympic trials convinced I was going to make that team. I was well prepared. And the second round of the Olympic trials, I slipped and took a couple of fellows behind me, Olympic dreams away, as well, as we crashed in this massive, right in the water jump. It was horrible. And jumped up and clawed our way out of that water jump and sprinted the last 158 meters to the finish line. Here I'm one of the best steeplechasers in the world. Michael, I didn't even make the finals of the U.S. Olympic trials. And that was pretty devastating.
Yeah.
And so after about a month of pity partying, yeah. Which is, I think, part of the Lemons to Lemonade story, isn't it? Yeah, nobody wants to come to that party, woe is me party. And I think that probably is okay. The grieving process is okay.
It's going to feel sad. It is.
Yeah. And after about a month, I was sick and tired of it. And I called my coach and I said, let's go to Atlanta in 96. And he says, I knew you'd call. So I signed up to another 4 years of torture and not just that, it's very painful to try and make an Olympic team in the steeplechase. And it's years of commitment. But there's the journey is just so rewarding along the way. Well, I didn't make the starting line at the Olympic trials in 96 with a terrible hip injury. And then I'm too old to make the Olympic team. And so let me introduce you to somebody. I want to share a screen.
Okay.
This guy, his name is Chick Hislop. And he is a remarkable man. Let's see if I can share this screen. I didn't get the screen shared. There you go. So this is a very famous man in the track and field world. he actually did make the Olympic team in '96. He was
Okay.
voted by his colleagues as the head Olympic distance coach, and so I changed my dream. Decided, well, if I'm not going to make the Olympic team, maybe I'll do something different. This is me in college. Um, and I got married to a girl on the team, and we got together and had some hybrids. These kids are just blazing fast. And so that was my dream. I was building a speaking career, and I was raising all these kiddos and just having a blast. Pinch myself, marriage and career and family. And we had a family tragedy, and found myself very unhappily um, single. And right in the midst of all that, just before all this happened, I was at a track meet, a high school track meet, and there was a coach's mile I was watching being contested. And I just thought that was just so dumb. The coach, really? You guys are going to get in a high school meet?
Yeah.
But before that race was over with, I knew I was supposed to do this. I just knew. And I tried to talk myself out of it all during this race. But by the time it was finished, I thought, I've got to do this. It took a year, almost a year, for me to actually get on the track and do something. But my question for your viewers, what are you called to do? When have you felt like you were supposed to do something, even if it didn't make sense, especially if it doesn't make sense? Do you have the courage to answer your call? Now, not just talking spiritually, although that could be it too. Are you called to, this work? Are you called to that volunteer work? Are you called? Most of the audience members that I asked that question to, raise your hand if you've ever felt called to do something. And people are like knowing nod of their head. I felt called to do this. And it didn't make any logical sense at all. In fact, the first time I went and bought a pair of track spikes, the young clerk says, "Well, who are you buying these for?" And I kind of myself, and I was embarrassed, because there's just no way to logically work this out, why I was be doing this, but I was supposed to do it. And so I started to train, and I thought, well, I got to have a goal. I was 44 years old at that time. It was 19 years since I've been on the track. And my goal was, I thought, well, I'm going to try and break a 5-minute mile. And for those of you that are listening, maybe that's just a number to you, but imagine a 5-minute mile. Most high school kids can't do that. Those are runners. I mean, very few human beings can run a 5-minute mile. What about alone a 44-year-old man, right? I ran 4:43 that day and then coughed for a week because I'd injured my lungs. But then I ripped my quad about a month later in training. And so I thought, well, that's that. Well, I started feeling this feeling. I've got to do this again. Well, now I'm 45 years old. The year's 2011. And I still feel called. And I'm thinking, well, I thought I got that out of my system. I got even more fit and ran a mile in 4 minutes and 23 or 32 seconds, 4:32. And then I ripped my quad muscle again. Took months to heal. So I called my old retired college coach, Chick Hislop, and I've got the screen shared there again. And I let him know what I'd done, and he was amazed. Yeah, he said, "How old are you?" And I says, "Well, I'm 46 this year, coach." And he says, "Gads," he says, "what's the world record in the masters age group, 45 to 49? Track and field has a masters age groups every 5 years, right?" And we looked it up, 4 minutes, 20 seconds. Guy's name is John Hinton, is the freak of nature that did that. And I says, "What do you think, coach?" And I'm on the phone. And remember this phone converse or this conversation in his office years before, when he says, "Let's do something that's never been done." He says, "Here's what I think. I think it's time for you and I to come out of retirement and finally go do something that's never been done." Michael, I had chills, and I just knew I was supposed to do this. So we got working together. And
I chills just now.
yeah, well, it was quite this is a difficult thing too. All those years that I'm working, those 2 years before, I get injured, and I'm thinking, why am I doing this? And I had this notion, I am supposed to do this. And so let me share my screen again, and I'll show you a couple more images. So in 2000, Well, let's do it. In 2012, we're working together, and I remember the world record's 420.19. John Hinton is the record holder. And in 2012, after 4 months of toil, he finally let me step on a track, and I ran a mile in 4:26.
Wow.
Okay, Mike. 2 weeks later, I ran 4:23, and 2 weeks later, I broke my foot.
Wow.
It was a stress fracture, and I got a stress fracture from overwork. He'd broken my foot from overtraining, and I'm on a crutches. And I says, "What now, coach?" He says, "Well, maybe we figured out why that's a 30-year-old world record we're trying to break." "What are you talking about, coach?" He says, "Maybe someone as old as you can't train hard enough to run any faster than 420.19." And it was devastating to hear that, because I got a broken heart to go with my broken foot, because I was supposed to do this.
Yeah.
And then he grinned at me and he says, "Or maybe I just haven't figured it out yet." And I think this is an important point for your viewers. He says, "Maybe some of the things that used to work when we worked together as a younger man, as a college kid, don't work anymore." He says, "The environment has changed." Now, see how this doesn't make sense to you, to your viewers, and whatever. I mean, apply this to non-track areas of your life. The environment has changed, so we've got to change our strategy. We've got to change our philosophy. Keep some of the core principles that we know work, but we got to get rid of everything else and figure out what works, and we'll reinvent what it means to train at a world-class level at this master's.
Brad, I think during this time with the COVID stuff going on, I think what a powerful thing you just said. I mean, I think so many people are like, their cheese got moved, right? And they got some new lemons to replace it. And so I think that's what you just said. Hey, what's got to change? You got to adapt, basically. And it's powerful. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, we started working together, and he says, here's the other thing he told me that day, when I was in a boot with a broken foot. He says, "We're also gonna remember what we're doing here." And I says, "Coach, what are we doing here?" He says, "We're doing stuff that's never been done." And I remember, and if pretty soon it wasn't all those syllables, it was simply remember, right? He just say remember, and that called me back to core why. Okay, why are we doing this? We're doing things that have never been done by a human being, right? We are testing the limits of an aged body to an aged athlete to withstand the kind of training that it would take to do stuff that's never been done. And here's the crazy part: there's an invisible line that if we go over it, we're going to get injured. But if we don't approach it close enough, I can't get fit enough to run any faster than anyone has ever run. So we've got this invisible line that we're trying to figure out where it is. And sometimes we go over it and sometimes we don't. But that's kind of the dilemma, if you can imagine trying to do that. So in 2013, let me share the screen again. I want to show you a couple of things. He sent me to Pocatello, Idaho to run a mile, just as a time trial, basically. And we get to see if I can go the other direction on this. Share a screen. Yeah, so he sent me to Pocatello, Idaho to run in this race, and I ran 4:26. A week later in Boise, it still was a warm up. I ran 4:21. I ran across the infield, called my coach. He wasn't with me. I screamed. I said, "Coach, I can do this. I can break the world record." His response, "Duh." That's what I've been trying to tell you. And I'm a second and a half off the world record. So in Boston, at Reggie Lewis Center, I ran a race, our first world record attempt. I ran 4:24, Michael, with a terrible head cold. That's all I could do. And then we had one last shot. It was Cornell in Ithaca, New York, and I got to this race, to this indoor track meet, and And I just knew that I had a shot at doing this. And excuse me, Cornell, I fell in the second lap of this race. And I had a separated shoulder. I had bruises all over my body, jumped back up, finished this race, ran 4:28. I was just so discouraged. I think this was my refining fire. I went to back to a stairwell, and I called my coach. I could barely hold the phone. I was still hurting. My arm was hurting so bad, and I was emotional.
Yeah.
And I'm still in great pain, and I was so disappointed. I'd failed again. I called my coach, and I said, "Coach, I can't do this. It's too hard." And my coach shoots back, "Remember what we're doing here." And I'm thinking, oh, great. And then he says, "If this was easy, it would have already been done." And dang it, I knew he was right. And he says, "Brad, get back on a plane, get back to Ogden. We'll get Dr. Sharma to look at your shoulder. I'll call the Columbia coach and see if I can get you in that last chance meet at the Armory." He says, "Brad, let's get it done in Uptown Manhattan 2 weeks from this evening." In almost 2 weeks, and it was 2 weeks, and about 4 hours later, I'm standing on a track watch the race. Let's watch it. 90 seconds. It's a 4.5-minute video in 90 seconds.
Okay. You're sharing it. I don't see it yet, Brad.
Is this playing?
Let's try to share it again.
Okay, let's try this all over again. Hang on just a second. Okay, let's try this.
First section of the men's mile. We have Tim Cousins.
And is it playing?
Yeah, it's hard to hear the people talking though.
Georgetown. Brad Barton going for the men's masters mile record of 4:20.19. James Frick, Johns Hopkins, and Ben Furt from Georgetown. They're off. Watch out for lane 5. The masters runner going for 4:20.19 is what his goal is today, as it has been all season, to get that masters mile. 63 for Brad Barton, going for 4:20.
I'm in black.
That's the number. 3:11 with 2 to go.
The track and field world was they were all talking about this.
Barton making a move down third. Barton, the Masters runner, he's looking good. Tim Cousins, 1 to go, 3:42. T. Cousins rolling. Brad Barton is also rolling, now in second. Tim Cousins, 4:13.68 unofficially. Saunders, Barton unofficially new American Masters record for age group 45 to 49. He is pumped. 4:15.67 for Brad Barton, new Masters American record age group 45 to 49.
So I guess what I wanted to share with you about this is, here's a kind of an impossible story. Literally, I mean, if it's not ever been done before, that's maybe one definition.
And you blew that record away.
And many people, that's the thing, many people had tried to do this over the years, and no one had been able to best John Hinton's right at 4:20. Nobody indoors has ever run, over 45 years old, ever run under 4:20. And Coach and I did it. I remember running across the infield, and I called my coach. Wasn't with me that time either, and I called my coach. I actually called my coach before my wife, and I just screamed, "Coach, we did it!" And it was just a wonderful experience after all that failure and all that pain and all the heartache that we'd gone through. And then we reset our goals and won a couple of national masters championships. And one of my sponsors sent me to Europe to go to the World Masters Games, and I won a couple of world championships. And then Coach and I sat down and I said, "Coach, I need to get that steeplechase world record." He and I had tried and failed to get the Olympic the world record in the steeple. And he says, "We're going to double your mileage then." And so I tried, and I set an American record and in Seattle, so close, within a second and a half of the world record. And I said, "What do we do, Coach?" I'm supposed to do this. And he says, well, we're going to double your mileage. And I'm thinking, it's got a lateral meniscus bucket handle tear in my left knee. There's no way I can handle that kind of mileage. He says, and you won't get the world record, will you? But if you don't try, you won't get the world record, will you? And I'm thinking, that old guy's right again, right? So we doubled my mileage and came back in 2014 and took 9 seconds off the indoor 3,000 meter world record. And then later that summer, in Nashville at Vanderbilt University. I love this. It's a great story. Let me just take a second. I'm sharing the screen, right? The guy was directing the race and calling it from the field. This is a race director, and he runs up to me just before the started us, and he says, "What's the world record in the steeple?" And I said, "It's a 9:16." He's like, "Oh, okay." I love the looks of this kid standing next to me. He's like, "What? I'm just here to run a steeplechase, and he's gonna do what?" Right?
And, I see a picture of your screen. I don't see a picture of the picture you're trying to show me. I don't think.
Oh, I see. What do you got?
Just your backdrop.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on just a second. Maybe I am sharing the wrong screen. Hang on, new share. Hang on just a second. Oh yeah, I got the wrong screen shared. And there you go. So I started this race and I'm dead on pace. Mm-hmm. And this is, oops, hang on just a second. I'm dead on pace at the mile mark, and I know I'm gonna get this record because everyone's gone out too fast. I'm right on pace. This next image is the one that was on the front page of the Salt Lake City sports section front page. Really fun story as well. Here's these college kids. The race director is just going crazy over the intercom. He's saying, "This guy's old enough to be their father." Ended up running breaking the world record by 9 seconds.
Wow.
And it's just, well, you can't make this stuff up. The record was submitted to the world governing body, and it was rejected. Time was rejected, and there was an inquiry made, and the response on email comes back: "Please forgive us, Mr. Barton. When we set the computer defaults to handle the data for the world records, we set those defaults so they would reject any unrealistic times." And the time was, Coach and I ran a steeplechase that summer so fast it would have won the Big Sky Conference that year. And the WAC conference and the Mountain West conference. I mean, this is a collegiate time. And they said, "We've reset the defaults on our computer system. Please resubmit. It will be accepted for your world record, and congratulations on your fine performance." Michael, wow. We broke their dang computer. and think about the reason. After all that failure and all that heartache and all that pain, there's a second half, rest of the story involved. By now, I've broken more bones than records. Is it possible because Coach had changed my defaults, not only as a young college athlete that just didn't feel like he belonged in a D1 program, all the way through this old guy that didn't feel like he was, capable of running faster than no one else in the world ever has. This man slowly but surely kept my eye on the prize. We remembered what we're doing. We're doing things that have never been done. We answered our call, and in the end, we end up with not only success, but really fabulous success out of a story that is failure, 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 lightning strike, and then more failure, and then more lightning strikes. That's life. I mean, as you're listening to this, I don't know what your circumstances are, who you are, but the stories that I was just telling really, in some ways, are not my stories, right? They're our stories with Brad Barton's details. And I hope you understand and really appreciate what I just said. This is the human condition. This is supposed to be hard. life is supposed to be hard. And if instead of, thinking that the problem is that having problems is a problem, we realize that having the notion that having a problem is the problem, right?
Yeah.
That if we just embrace the notion that hey, life is hard, life is painful, and it's very rewarding when things go great. It may be more rewarding, Michael, when you and I are faced with a difficulty and we face it and go through it, go over it, under it, break through, and experience the rewards of grabbing that awful, nasty lemon and just grinding it into something that actually is amazing. And it's not the victory lap. I've done this 4 times now where I've actually broken a world record, right? It's very rewarding. But when I look back on this, it's the journey. And I'm actually much more gratified by overcoming those adversities than I am about actually getting across the finish line.
Wow. Well, it's interesting. That first race, to go back for just a second, you actually had a dislocated shoulder 2 weeks before you broke the world record for the first time. Is that right?
Yep.
It's unbelievable. I mean, that's one of your lemons. I mean, it's unbelievable what you did. That's incredible. Wow. That's incredible.
Well,
Brad,
it really, who is incredible?
Yeah.
Who is incredible? Is this old guy that got hooked back up with his old coach, or is it all of us that have our proverbial separated shoulder and still get back up and go and win that race? Here's a philosophy my coach has. He says every one of us deserve. He uses the word scared. I like the word frightened better. He says every one of us deserve to wake up a little bit frightened of our day, because we are attempting something so difficult that we're just not sure how it's going to turn out. We're not even sure that we got what it takes to do this today, right? Mm-hmm. What a wonderfully zest-filled way to live. And that sure it takes the notion of adversity and just spins it right on its head, and makes those hard things seem like exciting challenges, doesn't it?
Yeah. So you've made definitely some lemonade here. Are there some lemons right now still? If you get some Boulder, some lemons right now you're still trying to deal with, or you're looking at right now?
Well, maybe that's the other story as well, because no, for 19 years, no human being has ever run under 4:25 in the mile after the age of 50. So for 19 years, and well, let's just say it this way, that's no longer the case. And now I am literally just a few months away from turning 55, and no one's ever been under 4:30 after 55 years old. And yeah, I'm dealing with some adversity right now, but
okay.
Yeah, stay tuned on that one, Michael.
Okay, that sounds good. That sounds good. So
let's go make some lemonade.
That's right. I love it. So tell me, if you, I mean, somebody's like you who's has this big goal and this trying to make their calling that they feel to go, and they've dealt with all these different adversities and trials, what would be the one thing you would tell them, one bit of advice you think that might make a difference today?
Well, yeah, to limit it to one, maybe this.
Okay.
Answer your call. Have the courage to ask your God, your universe, yourself, figure out what you are feeling called to do, and then have the courage, whether it makes sense or not. Now, for me, it turns out, like, who would have known this? But it was months after I'd set the first world record that one of my friends finally grabbed me and said, "Brad, you can use these stories in your speaking profession." I'm like, "What? Why would anybody?" Yeah, of course, right? It's starting to make sense why I did this, why I was supposed to do this. and the thousands, tens of thousands that we've inspired along the way,
Wow.
you know, with Outside Magazine articles and Runner's World articles and all the, you know, hundreds of thousands have seen the videos. Whatever it is, and again, this is my story, but it's our story. When you answer your call, when you make a decision, Coach told me once, he says, Brad, you're going to have to do 1,000 hard things in order to get in position to set a world record. So you can either make 1,000 hard decisions to do those 1,000 hard things, or you can make one decision to do all 1,000 things. And then that cuts the workload, Michael, in half. Because now all I got to do is just go do the 1,000 hard things, which really just sounds like I'm just, you know, fluff speaking. But those of you that know, that have done this and answered your call with a decided heart, right? You'll appreciate what I just said. And those that don't quite get it, imagine what it would be like when you're faced with your 1,000 hard things, when you answer your call. And imagine just living with a decided heart so that it's just done. And all you have to do is go out and perform, right? Those 1,000 hard things. And part of them are broken bones, maybe.
Yeah.
But you get back up and you get better.
You know, I want to just bring something up just as part of this. A lot of people, their call doesn't come. They don't know it until they had the lemons hit, right? It's often because of the lemons, they learned their call, right? And I think that is an important thing. If you're going through some serious lemons of your life, divorce, death, serious illness, you know, financial run, whatever your lemon is, right? That could be the trigger to find out what your call is so you can truly make your lemonade.
Yeah, you can't. I would go a step further, Michael, and say you can't make that tasty lemonade without being confronted, not just in view of the lemon, but actually have that sometimes thrust into your hand so that you can squeeze that thing. Maybe it's your heart being squeezed, right? Yeah, you've got to have those really bitter, those little sour experiences, in order to make that lemonade. You know, I think that's what life is about.
You know, I often tell people when Tiffany got cancer, I said, you know, cancer was a beautiful gift wrapped in really ugly wrapping paper, right? It brought us close together. It changed priorities. It was a price we had to pay to come to know God. Right. And I think when people can get to that point where they can sit there, that broken bone or that cancer or that death or that divorce or whatever it is they can see it as a beautiful gift wrapped in really ugly wrapping paper. That's when things change for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
let's go answer our call.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? I've been inspired today, and I want to thank you, Brad. And I'm confident that there are people out there who need to hear this today. And so thank you so much. And so we'll look forward to part B in the near future. Okay?
Sounds great. Thanks,
right.
Michael.
Okay. God bless.